Hi, I'm Abby. I have a lot of records, and this is Vinyl Monday. So, welcome back, or welcome if this is your first episode here. This is the series where I sit down and I just talk about music that I love. I don't know how else to segue into this. Last week was a time. So, if you saw the pinned comment of my last episode of Vinyl Monday, which was Are You Experienced by Jimi Hendrix, we had some difficulties getting that episode out. So, I've actually been on vacation. So what I did was I filmed the Piper at the Gates of Dawn episode and the Are You Experienced episodes ahead of time, and I cut them together and posted them on vacation, right? So Pink Floyd went off without a hitch. I thought, alright, this is gonna go great. I'll cut together this Are You Experienced video like a week ahead, and then I can just enjoy my vacation, which I wasn't really enjoying much of because I almost needed stitches. And then at 10 p.m. on a Sunday, the night before the Are You Experienced episode goes up, the file just corrupts, and I lose everything after the first 4 minutes. So I had to recut the entire thing and basically remake the Are You Experienced episode from scratch to get it up on time on Monday morning at 11 a.m. And get this, I hadn't even started the Instagram episode yet. Sure, the video was there, but nothing else was. You guys, it was legitimately, might have been the most stressful 2 hours in recent memory. But it got up on time, and here we are with the original intended episode for last week. We have Willy and the Poor Boys by Creedence Clearwater Revival. I'm gonna take this out of the plastic really quick to show you guys. My copy is an original. It's a little beat up, but it plays great. I really don't think you should be passing up on a great sounding record just because the jacket looks a little rough. And even then, some rough looking discs will play perfectly. It's definitely a case of don't judge a book by its cover, don't judge an album by its cover either. This album art was photographed by Basil Parekh. Many apologies if I didn't pronounce that name right. And this was released on Fantasy Records in 1969. So the lineup on Willy and the Poor Boys goes as follows. You have John Fogerty on lead vocals and guitar, Tom Fogerty on backing guitar, Stu Cook on bass, and Doug Clifford on drums. As you'll see on the backside, this record was also produced by John Fogerty, and the traditional songs Cotton Fields and Midnight Special were also arranged by John Fogerty. And notable guests include Booker T and the MGs. They play on songs like Down on the Corner. Now, to say 1969 is a chaotic year for Creedence Clearwater Revival is an understatement. Control of the band had shifted from Tom Fogerty over to John, and John has, to say the absolute least, a monster work ethic. This had both its pros and its cons. On the good side, this is CCR at the height of their career. These guys are on fire. They just performed Woodstock, and they already released 2 other studio albums this year. Bayou Country, which I have right here, and Green River. Now, what is absolutely insane to me is that Green River came out just 3 months before Willy and the Poor Boys. That is an insane turnaround time, even for the 60s. And not only were these guys putting out 3 albums in 1 year, 2 of these albums only being 3 months apart, they're also touring the entire time. And this is where we get to the cons of John's monster work ethic. By all accounts, at this time in the band's history, he's gotten pretty controlling. Putting out that amount of music is exhausting. Physically, mentally, emotionally, creatively, it's a madhouse. And the dynamic between the band members is getting a little tense. They were already one of the hottest bands in the world in 1969, But with Willy and the Poor Boys, Creedence Clearwater Revival were about to do something huge. The track listing goes as follows. The album is opened with Down on the Corner, followed by the Chuck Berry-inspired tune It Came Out of the Sky. Then comes Cotton Fields, followed by Poor Boy Shuffle and Feelin' Blue. Side B is opened with Fortunate Son, and that's followed by Don't Look Now, It Ain't You or Me. Then comes the Midnight Special, followed by Side of the Road, and the album closes with Effigy. That huge thing that Creedence Clearwater Revival was about to do with Willy and the Poor Boys was, of course... So Down on the Corner and Fortunate Son was a double A-side single. And Fortunate Son was inspired by a number of things, notably John Fogerty getting drafted for Vietnam, and John hearing of the wedding of David Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower's grandson, and Julie Nixon, Richard Nixon's daughter. This sounds like a political satire, but no, this is a real wedding that happened. Now, I really don't need to tell you guys all of the ins and outs of the Vietnam War era, because looking at the demographics of my YouTube channel, either you lived through it yourself or your parents did. Here's a little bit of context for people like myself who are a little farther removed from this era than the rest of you watching. Just like the United States military targets poor, young men of color for recruitment now, and it does, don't try and tell me that it doesn't, the draft targeted the working class, or, in a more general sense, everyone who wasn't rich enough to get out of it. And in the late 60s and early 70s, at the height of the Vietnam War and the height of America's involvement in it, you had all of these out-of-touch rich people in power making poor boys fight their war for them. And CCR wrote for the working class. So to recap, you've got a hilariously out-of-touch government governing over a generation of dissatisfied youths and sending them off to fight a war that people supported, but no one actually wanted to fight. It's a perfect storm for Willy and the Poor Boys, and therefore Fortunate Son to exist. Fortunate Son isn't so much a critique of the Vietnam War and America's involvement in it itself. It's more so a critique of class inequity exacerbated by war. And clearly that resonated with a lot of people. Fortunate Son is a success the likes of which few groups have ever experienced and will ever experience. It is, for lack of a better term, iconic, and it's become synonymous with the Vietnam War era. Think its use in movies like Forrest Gump. Shit, whenever I hear a helicopter fly a little too low over my house, I hear Fortunate Son playing in my head. So, going into the research for Willy and the Poor Boys, I wanted to know why it is that we hear Fortunate Son so much in media that takes place surrounding the Vietnam War. And I found out pretty quickly that it was because John Fogerty had signed off all the rights to CCR's catalog to their label, Fantasy Records. So the label controls the rights to their music, and say it with me, people, what do labels like? They like money! If you ask me, the integrity of Fortunate Son and CCR's music has been compromised many, many times over by this decision. Like, I'm pretty sure Down on the Corner was in a Walgreens commercial or something, and now I'm sick of it forever. And get this, Wrangler tried to use Fortunate Son to sell jeans. Thank God John still has a little bit of a say in where his music goes, because he put a stop to that one so fast. Upon Willy and the Poor Boys' release, it is, once again, a smash hit for Creedence Clearwater Revival. Who would have guessed that? And Fortunate Son is now in the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry, which is, I believe, one of the highest honors you can get as a songwriter. So what do I, as a person born in the late 1990s, think about Willy and the Poor Boys and Fortunate Son? And now I'm probably gonna have to wait until my neighbors stop shouting outside. Well, I think Fortunate Son reads as dated because of media like Forrest Gump. sort of pigeonholing it into a really specific time frame in American history, when really, it's still so relevant. If it wasn't for CCR's label peddling off their songs to whoever or whatever the highest bidder was, it would still feel and sound just as relevant as it did in maybe 1969. As for the album as a whole, the gospel and folk influences happening on Willy and the Poor Boys have a huge hand in why it's so good. Everyone forgets about Effigy, which is arguably way more openly anti-Nixon than Fortunate Son. Effigy reminds me of the song Alabama by Neil Young, which sparked a whole Southern rock saga in and of itself. For those not aware, Neil Young and Lynyrd Skynyrd were big beefin' in the 70s. There's this really interesting thing that happens when you're listening through the whole record and you've just finished Fortunate Son. At least this happened for me. You suddenly realize how political it all is and how political the whole record has been. It's like a super cool aha moment. At least that was the aha moment that I had this morning, giving this record one last play before I sat down to film for you guys. But, maybe having John Fogerty produce the record wasn't the greatest call. I mean, the individual songs sound great, but there are points like the transition between Poor Boy Shuffle and Feelin' Blue that are just... It's so bad. Like, who let him do that? And I am so sick of Down on the Corner because of that damn Walgreens commercial, which is a shame because Booker T and the MGs rock that song out. I want to pull an MC5 and take out a full-page ad in one of my local publications that just says, "Fuck Walgreens." As a whole, Willy and the Poor Boys is an incredible, indelible time capsule into the Vietnam War-era United States. The world was precarious and dangerous, and everybody thought we'd just be reduced to a cinder block flying through space in a matter of years anyway. I know a thing or two about that. I grew up in a post-9/11 world amidst at least 2 recessions. We have nuclear weapons in the hands of madmen. World War III has almost broken out like 5 times in the past 4 years, and I was in college for Watergate 2, Electric Boogaloo, the bad ending. Willy and the Poor Boys immortalizes this moment in which a huge, gaping hole has been ripped through the fabric of America, and being born in the last year of the 20th century, I can tell you that that hole was never repaired. Everyone had skin in the game, and everyone's still got skin in the game. And I think that's why I'm so fixated on the music, and the fashion, and the history, and the culture of the 60s and the 70s. It is because it is still terrifyingly relevant. All of that being said, my personal favorites off Willy and the Poor Boys are It Came Out of the Sky, Feelin' Blue, Fortunate Son, Midnight Special, Don't Look Now, and Effigy. Alright, yeah, wow, that was a lot. So, what do you think of Willy and the Poor Boys? You should tell me what you think of CCR and this record in the comments below. I love reading what you guys have to say about the music that I like. If you like what I do on this series, you should like this video and subscribe for more episodes of Vinyl Monday. I post these every Monday morning at 11 a.m. If you are somehow getting this episode on time, it means I have filmed, edited, exported, and uploaded it all in like 8 hours. Yeah, I don't know how I do it either. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you all here next week. Bye! Hold on, I gotta check up on something here. No, my notes are literally just wrong.